Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CS Cyber. I'm Chad.
I'm Sean.
And today we are on episode 5 of our NIST 800-171 series, and we are talking about configuration management.
All right, let's do it.
So configuration management, what do you think of when I say configuration management?
I think of a checklist or an image, something to make sure that my deployments are consistent.
For anything, right?
Yeah.
So I think of, I'm an older server guy, so I think of servers specifically, but it's really anything, right? So it's
Right.
laptops, desktops, servers, firewalls, switches, cloud systems now. Cloud systems are really a big one, right? I mean, you may have multiple cloud systems. There's configurations for all of those. So it's really critical for maintaining security and integrity of systems, right? So having the same baseline, at least the initial deployment baseline across your environment is really key to properly managing systems and preventing security vulnerabilities, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, back in the day when we were managing systems, it wasn't, I guess the config, like the deployment checklists and things that we used back then and images were more for the consistency of the deployment. And then I think as things evolved, obviously the security components came in.
Yeah. So I see a lot of checklists out in the field, right? I think a lot of people have, we're going to get a laptop or a server and we're going to do X, Y, Z. We're going to follow these steps. I think where, some people struggle, like what I see on the field is that initial image. Let's use a desktop, right? The desktop comes with an image. So unless you've worked with Dell or HP and you have an image that they're loading for you, it's going to be whatever image that they put on it, and then you start from there, right? So
which was an awful image.
Which was it's loaded with all the Xbox features and everything else you don't really need. So I forget where I was going with this, but yeah, that checklist starts there really, where I'm thinking, the configuration should really start with the OS install.
Yeah.
And I'm a big advocate of people having their own imaging, their own hardened image, right?
Yep, correct.
So, all right. So let's just kind of go through like a real world scenario of how this could play out. So this is all about CUI data. So everything we've talked about in this series is back to protecting CUI data. Right. So keep that in mind as you go through this series and everything we've talked about. So defense contractor failed to properly configure security settings in their cloud infrastructure. So they've exposed CUI.
That's never happened.
Yeah, right. So a misconfigured cloud firewall allowed external users to bypass authentication mechanisms, leading to a data breach. Right. So that's how simple it is. And how many times have we been on site and we just do like a quick look at someone's firewall, not even necessarily doing like a deep audit, and we find like configuration errors?
Every time?
Yeah. So, and primarily like there's no rules applied, right? So you've just...
Yeah, it's like either no rules or the wrong rules, or a change was made and they opened something up for a vendor and then never closed it. Now, there's been a lot of breaches that have happened for that. Even something as simple, and there's been some stuff in the news lately just about how vulnerable the gateway is, right? Because we've still got a lot of companies out there that are taking years to patch, a vulnerability in a firewall. But even if just something as simple as keeping your, not to get off topic real quick, but just something as simple as keeping your host access, your host authentication locked down is worth everything. But to answer your question, just every time. You were telling me right before the show about how you had a customer that had a bunch of Office 365 licenses that were off. Right. Yeah. So the customer thought they were not paying for them.
Right.
But the licenses were still assigned.
They're absolutely paying for them. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So this whole control family focuses on establishing and maintaining a secure baseline configurations, managing system changes, controlling the use of software tools, and it really helps organizations enforce security, evenly across the enterprise. Right. So. Just some key requirements for configuration management. establish a baseline configuration and document that, right? So you want to know exactly how your laptops, your desktops, your servers are being deployed and going out the door. Enforce change control processes. So you really need to document your changes. If you're making a configuration change to an image, how are you going to roll that out to a single image, test it, and then deploy that across the environment? You're pushing buttons over there. That makes me nervous.
Sorry. I thought I was going to cough, but I'm not.
Oh, okay.
So I was trying to not do it into the mic.
Glad we got that worked out. Restrict the use of unauthorized software, right? So you want to prevent software applications from being installed, your users having carte blanche access to just do whatever they want to do. And really you want to check on these configurations, right? So there's tools out there like Change Auditor that will tell you if a configuration has been changed, or if not, you just really need to if you don't have something like that, you really need to go out there and you need to do a configuration review on some reoccurring basis. So
correct.
This control family has 9 subcontrols, so you'll want to kind of go through those. Let's just kind of talk about some like practical examples of how you can enforce configuration management, right? So,
okay,
group policy. If you have an AD domain, I mean, group policy is a great way to do that. It's easy to it's really easy to control devices via group policy if they're on the domain, right? So, make sure you're using that. Those are kind of free tools. Change management process. If you don't have a change management or a change approval board, I'd really encourage you just to kind of organize that internally and start documenting and putting your changes through a process where they're approved.
Right.
It's probably going to save you some time on outages. And if something is broken, you're going to know what's happened and kind of be able to roll those back. Anything to add there?
This is all very difficult. Most people fail at the Microsoft group policy piece because it's built in there. But I think for the majority of users and listeners out there, they have I'll call it a rudimentary understanding of how group policy works. While they could probably get it to function, there's a lot. I know I struggled a ton with that, a ton. And I just want to encourage people to do one of two things. One, either hire a consulting company that has expertise in group policy, not us. GPOs. Or there's other ways to do it. If you don't want to do group policy, there's RMM tools like Kaseya and Automate, and they have other components that manage group policy. I know ManageEngine has a group policy, like a graphical group policy manager. There are so many different ways of doing that. Just get to one of them and invest in it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think there's a lot that you can break a lot of things with group policy.
Oh yeah, you can.
And then you're chasing kind of ghosts in the wires, right? Trying to figure that out.
Yeah. And as far as like the change management process, so way back in the day, I struggled with this, and almost everybody who's listening probably has a ticket system, right? Either it's Spiceworks or they've got some service desk system. I created a ticket type called change control, and I would just start opening internal tickets and just something that simple, right? To just document that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you were talking about some products, right? Windows group policy is a good one. Chef came up. Ansible. I've never heard of Ansible, so I don't know, but it was one of the top
I've never heard of
configuration management tools. Puppet, if you got some cash and you want to throw Microsoft System Center there,
Oh, right. I'd say most people listening to this probably aren't there.
Yeah. But start with group policies, right? I've seen it on both ends of the spectrum. I've seen environments where there's almost no group policy, and then I've seen environments where there's so many group policies that no one, it's like untangling a ball of yarn to try to figure out what's doing what.
Yeah, that's probably a good analogy.
So some key policies and procedures to address this control: configuration management policy, change control policy, software inventory, and privilege access management policy. So
policies.
Yeah, every control family has its policies.
I know.
So just some challenges around this, right? We've talked about how just to implement configurations, but managing drift, right? Like you really need to kind of go back and look at these configurations on some periodic basis, or have a software platform or some sort of tool that's alerting you to configuration changes in the network. This is a good one. Balancing security with operational needs.
Right.
So preventing overly restrictive settings that hinder productivity.
Yeah, I'd say every user out there in the world is going to complain about that.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's something we can talk about later, right? I mean, users will find a way to get the work done that they need to do. So that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
That's another podcast.
And if you've never heard of the Center for Internet Security, the CIS controls, the CIS controls they have a series called Benchmarks, and they're free. And they're updated on a regular basis, and they're great guidance documents because there's cloud ones too. So for example, if you're trying to keep your O365 environment, compliant, and you want to know what, a secure Office 365 environment looks like, the CIS controls are great auditing tools to get you started.
Yeah, and they actually have those for Windows. They have those for Linux systems.
They do.
Just about every flavor of Windows.
Yeah, and just about every cloud. I don't know if they have an S3 one or Amazon. It's been a little bit since I've looked at it, but they generally keep those updated quite a bit.
All right. Well, that's all we got for today. Stay tuned. We'll be here next week where we'll be talking about identification and authentication.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. Good luck out there with configuration management.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
See ya.